a declaration of intention on July 4th, 2021. The day we signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia in 1776, we took these truths to be self-evident that all people were created equal and endowed with certain inalienable rights. And in order to ensure that those rights, it sometimes becomes necessary to free ourselves from the bonds that bind us to tyrants and dictators. When in the course of human events, our leaders become so removed and so out of touch that they respond with hollow words and treat us as commodities and not like citizens with equal rights. When they use the power of the media to fill our airways with lies and misrepresentations. When they cause those at the bottom of the economic ladder to work for the barest and most minimum of wages while ingratiating themselves with lavish and stupendous salaries. When what used to be called a democracy, and which is actually a republic, has now become a corporate plutocracy. When those convicted of heinous crimes against thousands are walking around free on bail, and those who are convicted of complicity with organized crime have their charges dismissed because of technicalities. When those whose grandparents came to this country, some legally, some illegally, some with papers and some without, they now sit in judgment of those who came here from a country different from theirs, and who now think of themselves as native-born and everybody else as a foreigner. When the lobbyists on K Street have more to say as to what laws of the land will be enforced and what laws will not, when those in government who have pledged and sworn to defend the rights of the least of us are now controlled by the largest and richest corporations on the planet, when the courts turn their back on justice and side with those in power, when all these things have come to pass, their time too will come to pass, and we the people will once again raise our voices and declare our intention and become the power we represent. We will not fight them like fools, throwing flames on their fires of hatred and greed. We will not fight them on the battlefield of consumption, trying to outspend them with their hordes of ill-gotten gains. We will not fight them in the church of hypocrisy, where 1 hour of prayer soothes 100 hours of crime. We will observe ourselves and battle the demons created by our own mind. We will create a new world from the new imagination of our cleaned up minds, and we will go forth and triumph with a vision of peace for a healthy, wholesome, and holistic world. Okay, that was my little declaration of intention. I wrote that a few years ago, and it's been hanging around on my July 4th. Some people may wonder why I'm sitting here with I got my flag on here, and I've got an American flag in back of me, and some people think that everybody who's progressive is anti-American or anti-flag or anti-something. Back in the 60s, when the Vietnam War was going on, flags were being burnt in the street, and draft cards were being burnt, and a lot of things were being burnt. Does that mean they don't like the country? Does that mean they don't like their fellow citizens? Not at all. What it means is they don't like the hypocrisy that's going on. They're not satisfied with the policies that are coming out of the country. They recognize the inequalities that are present in our whole system here. There's another little piece, let me bring it up here. This was a poem by a friend of mine in town here. It's called Freedom by Steve Wolfe. Steve Wolfe is a really accomplished singer-songwriter. And I won't read the whole thing here. Let me just run down to the bottom. You are a rebel, it is clear. The things you say are true. No one wants to hear your rights about to disappear. Until you seek the truth, you will live in fear. But the flag's burning fast and the ocean takes the mast. Hear the guns of rebellion drawing near, and it's freedom awaiting me. Freedom, can't you see the train keeps on rolling to the shores of liberty? And it's freedom coming in, freedom catch the wind. The time may not come again. This time you must take a stand. This time you must take a stand. That's freedom. That's Steve Wolfe. And He's basically, when he says you will live in fear, the flag is burning fast and the ocean takes the mast. The symbol here is the flag on the boat. I would think, Francis Scott Key and the Star Spangled Banner. Francis Scott Key did have slaves, is a racist, and if you read the second and third stanzas of the Star Spangled Banner, you'll see the racism clearly coming through. It's time to get rid of that and maybe have America the Beautiful or something a little bit less militaristic as a new national anthem. But the image that I'm getting here, the flag is burning fast and the ocean takes the mast. So the flag is burning and the ship is sinking. The democracy is getting taken away from us as we speak. Now, is it being taken or is it coming to America? Well, another little riff on the democracy theme here. This was Leonard Cohen, The Future. And I didn't realize that this was written as long ago as it was. This goes back to 1997. Leonard Cohen and The Future is the album. And the big song on that was Democracy. Democracy is coming to the USA. Well, you'll have to excuse my singing. I really can't sing. My singing is so bad, my wife doesn't even like me singing in the shower sometimes. It's coming through a hole in the air from those nights in Tiananmen Square. And that's the opening of it. And unfortunately, Tiananmen Square doesn't seem to have carried through. It seems as if in China, the Chinese Communist government has done everything they can to suppress the whole democracy movement throughout China and specifically in Hong Kong now. So that doesn't feel too good. It's coming from a sorrow on the street, the holy places where the races meet. It's coming from the sorrow on the street, the holy place where the races meet. We all come together on the street, we all meet on the street, and it's where all the races, America is not just a bunch of white men, it's a whole groups of white and black and red and yellow and green with envy, maybe some of them who aren't here. It's coming to America first, the cradle of the best and the worst. It's here they've got the range and the machinery for change, I wonder. And it's here they've got the spiritual thirst. It's here the family's broken, and it's here the lonely say that the heart has got to open in a fundamental way. Democracy is coming to the USA. Democracy is coming to the USA. And he goes through quite a few little stanzas here, and it's always been a sort of an inspirational up for me to listen to this song, Democracy is Coming to the USA. And I have been talking about the death of democracy and the death of capitalism. In fact, let's just run right over here. I put this up. I put this up a few times. The Declaration of Independence and the Wealth of Nations were both published in 1776. So there's a marriage of capitalism and slavery, an embedded language of capitalism and slavery here, and it's been that way since 1776. So there's this notion that they're together, and this is sort of mom and apple pie. And the problem with the capitalism part is that capitalism has, in a sense, deteriorated. It's gone from what Adam Smith sort of defines as capitalism to what we have come to know as more like corporate capitalism or gangster capitalism or international capitalism. And the latest derogatory word about capitalism comes in today's New York Times. And today's actually January 7th. And the article it was an editorial, Amazon workers are taking back Seattle. And what they're talking about here is Amazonian capitalism, Amazon capitalism, which is described as the larger global trend of the increasing influence of financial capitalism, neoliberal politics, and corporate power. Neoliberalism does not mean liberal. If anything, it's the opposite. So we're talking about finance, neoliberal politics, and corporate power. And this is what he's describing as Amazon capitalism. With the buyouts and mergers, The smaller companies are getting crushed. The little local Main Street capitalist is getting crushed, and he's getting taken over by the big Amazonian, and the Amazonians are literally redefining the whole culture in this country. The last word I'm going to talk about a little bit is patriotism. I looked it up, the word patriotism. I'm sitting here with my tie on and my flag on, and patriotic. What does it mean to be patriotic? Now, the right has been co-opting the American flag for years now. And right after 9/11, in fact, is when it really got going big time. It started in the 90s, but it was after 9/11 where suddenly you couldn't appear in Congress if you didn't have an American flag lapel pin on you. Well, you got all these guys with American flag lapel pins, like Michael Flynn, who sits there having dinner at a big event with Vladimir Putin, who is then introducing, or Felix Slater then goes and introduces Trump to Putin. And they go over there and they have their Miss Universe contest, and then Putin gets friendly with Trump, and then Putin and the Russians are pouring money into his campaign, and they're lending him money through Deutsche Bank, and he's got this whole symbiotic relationship going. And half the people in the Trump administration have these ties to Russia. The NRA has been infiltrated by the Russians directly for years now. And it's not just Flynn. You go to there's a list of like a half a dozen of these guys who have had direct contact with the Russians, including Trump, who deferred to Putin the whole time he was in office. How we do not see through this veil of hypocrisy is just stunning to me. These guys are racist, they're white supremacists, and they're leaning towards the Russians. They're traitors. And they're running around with the American flags, and we're supposed to be sitting here, like we're a bunch of anarchists or something, because we're trying to maintain a social order that embodies everybody here in the planet. Oh boy! There's a little piece I wrote also a little bit ago. It's called "Let America Be America Again," the way it used to be when it was on TV. Let it be the dream it used to be, of freedom, equality, and liberty for you and me. Well, for me it's been easy, because I'm white, and I'm a male. But you, I've never walked in your shoes. You're black and brown, you're yellow and tan, you're red, and you're green with envy, because it's been easy for me. But not for you. The dream of freedom, equality, and liberty, way easier for me, because I'm a man. But you're a woman. I've had it easy. I don't even know I've had it so easy. And in spite of that, I'm here, sitting here talking about this stuff. So let America be America once again. And the patriotism, the piece I was getting to was the quote by Samuel Johnson back in 1776. He said, "Patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel." Patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. Now, when he wrote this, James Boswell, in a book about Johnson, puts the quote in, but it's sort of out of context. There's no evidence to contradict the belief that he was he criticizing patriotism or not? It's not clear. And it's not clear from the quote, and it's not clear from the writings. And they make a comparison between patriotism and religion, and then they go on to argue, and this is in the Wikipedia. They've gone on to argue that the difference between patriotism and faith is difficult to discern and relies largely on the attitude of what one is doing, the one that's doing the labeling. So it's the person who's calling the other person patriotic or not patriotic. It's the one who's doing the labeling. Patriotism originally goes back not just to the French, meaning father, but it goes back to the Latin, meaning fellow countrymen. So anybody that was in the country, was that was your patriotism, was your unity with your fellow human beings that were in the same borders that you were on. I would argue right now that we're at the age when we're living in a world right now with a world market and a world problems, and perhaps patriotism means that we need to encompass the whole world and the whole body of humanity in order to survive this debacle that's going on. It's 14 minutes in. Here's an old story of mine from back in the Vietnam era. I joined the Air Force when I first came to California. And long story why I joined, but I joined the Air Force and I'm in the Air Force. And while I'm in the Air Force, I think I'm going to go overseas someplace, like some fancy place like Japan, or that's what the poster said, the planes flying over Japan. Well, I wound up back in New Jersey where I had sort of practically started. So I wind up on a missile base defending these Beaumark missiles. Well, when I get there, it was sort of boring doing this electronic work, so I volunteered to be an air policeman in the group. Well, at the time, the air police were the only people that were in Vietnam. The Gulf of Tonkin hadn't happened yet. So we were acting as advisors in Vietnam, advisors. So all the military police units were there, from the Air Force, from the Marines, from the Army, and from the Navy. And they were acting as they had guns and they were shooting, but they were acting as advisors. So anyway, I joined the police group on the base, but I was connected with the electronics work. I was getting a little bored of being in New Jersey. I volunteered to go to Vietnam as an air policeman. Well, they said, no, you can't go. You can't go to Vietnam as an air policeman. We need you here in America. You're too valuable maintaining these Beaumark missiles in New Jersey. What, are you kidding me? But anyway, they wouldn't send me. Time is going on, and I get married, and we have a baby, and I'm still in the service, and it's not really feeling like this is where I belong. I am economically not where I need to be in life, and I can't afford to be in the service and have a baby and have a wife and everything. So I apply for a hardship discharge. Well, the paperwork goes through, and as the paperwork is going through, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution is getting passed. Now, I had already volunteered to go to Vietnam, and they wouldn't send me. I am now getting my hardship discharge. The week I'm leaving the service, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution gets passed, and suddenly anybody that's breathing got sent to Vietnam. So I was officially classified as a Vietnam veteran because I was in the Air Force at the time that the war was officially going on. So here I was, a Vietnam veteran, and later on I was able to get educational benefits because I was a Vietnam veteran. It helped me get through college. But the point was, I volunteered, they wouldn't send me, and then the next week they wanted to send me, and by that time I was out the door. So was I patriotic? I mean, I volunteered to go to Vietnam, and I believe in the principles that we espouse, the words we espouse. They don't seem to be followed by our right actions. So when the Vietnam veterans against the war got into the street to protest the war, they were the true patriots. They were the patriots who were there defending our fellow human beings who were being sacrificed on Rumsfeld's or Mitchell's altar of greed and conquering the world. All right, that was it. Let's wrap it up for July 4th. Peace, patience, persistence, and we'll see you as soon as possible.